It has been some years since their marriage. Jonathan and his wife Marianne have been living in their own little home by the forests of Homewood, England. And for the past months, they have been expecting a little one to join them. As the sun set on a gloomy evening, Jonathan lit his lantern and hung it on his donkey cart. He was heading out towards the old graveyard where he had been felling wood recently. "Jonathan, I really don't like that you go there every evening. You know it's forbidden. It's not safe. No one dares go there." "Marianne, what choice do I have? Since no one goes there, it's the only place I can get my hands on some expensive wood. You know our situation. We're barely getting by ourselves, and soon it's not just going to be us. Be careful, okay? Don't worry about me. Have your dinner and go to bed, all right?" As night fell in Homewood, the forest became pitch dark. It was difficult to see anything, and no one was around for miles. The journey was troublesome, but this was the only time Jonathan could go out without being spotted by the townspeople. As he rode down the eerily silent path, a cool breeze rushed through the tall trees. It was quite chilly, and his donkey was rather reluctant to go. "Come on now, let's go." Jonathan pushed the donkey along, when suddenly he felt startled to the hooting of an owl. When his donkey wouldn't budge, Jonathan got down and pulled on its string, walking down the forest path. Can't be out all night now. About 20 minutes traveling, Jonathan reached near the old graveyard. It had been abandoned for many years now. No one buried their loved ones here, nor did anyone return to meet those who had been buried afore. He passed through the tombs, now covered in weed and vines, and tied his donkey to one of the trees. With his axe, he got to work. The winds had picked up quite a bit. Seems like it'll rain soon. We need to get back quickly. The skies began to rumble. Jonathan quickly got on his donkey cart and headed off. But as heavy gusts of wind began to blow, his donkey became startled. Jonathan barely managed to get hold of the animal as the cart tilted aside. But that was when the lantern on the cart fell, and the lights blew out. Jonathan was stuck in darkness. He got down and tried to calm his donkey. "Don't be afraid. It's all right. I'm with you." Letting the animal eat and drink, Jonathan sat down for a break. As he got a fire going to turn the lantern on again, finally lighting up his path, Jonathan was about to get back on his cart when he felt a strange presence behind him. "Is someone there?" He raised the lantern and took a few steps back, trying to look through the darkness of the woods. But he couldn't see anyone or anything. Strange. It was quite late when Jonathan reached home. As he tied his cart and allowed his donkey into its shed, he heard Marianne's voice behind him. "Finally, you're home. You haven't slept yet? It's so late. I told you not to wait for me." "How could I sleep while you were out so late? Hurry, come in. It's about to rain." Marianne took Jonathan inside and served the table. Beef and green pea stew. Smells delicious. After dinner, Jonathan and Marianne finally went to bed. The rain began to pour, and listening to the droplets hit the roof, they soon fell asleep. But sometime in the middle of the night, Jonathan woke up startled to Marianne's cry. "Jonathan, it hurts. The baby." What? But it's only been 8 months. Jonathan panicked seeing Marianne crouch in pain. He didn't know what to do. But when the pain got worse, he knew they needed to get help. "Come on, get on the cart." Barely managing to get Marianne behind the donkey cart, Jonathan rode off in the rain. Reaching town, he went straight to the house of worship and knocked on the door. Priest Edward opened up, surprised to see him. "Father, my wife is pregnant. She's in pain. Please help us." "Don't worry, bring her in." Priest Edward immediately called for some of the nuns from the convent, and they escorted Marianne to help. "Brother?" Near dawn, Jonathan turned to see one of the sisters calling him. She had an anxious look on her face. "Is she all right?" "She's given birth to a son. He's healthy and well, but we're sorry, she's no more." "What? No, that can't be." Jonathan rushed into the room to see Marianne laying on the bed. She looked beautiful as she always did. Beside her in a cot, his baby boy. "She's fine. She's just sleeping. Marianne, wake up. Look at our child. Marianne, wake up." As Jonathan anxiously called Marianne, Father Edward walked into the room. "My son, she's no more." Jonathan looked at Father Edward in despair. "Father, this can't be." "Have patience. You have a son to care for. You can't break down like this. We have to honor her body and arrange for her burial." "Father, you know my situation. I won't be able to afford burying her in the town cemetery, but perhaps in the old graveyard." "No, my son, not there. It's not a good place." "I don't have a choice, Father." That morning, Father Edward assisted Jonathan in preparing for Marianne's burial at the old graveyard. Everyone was in a hurry to get back home. Everyone except Jonathan, who miserably stared at her grave. "My son, if you visit her, come during midday. Never come here after sunset. This isn't a good place." Despite not wanting to leave Marianne, Jonathan had to get home. His sister Jocelyn was looking after his son. "Jonathan, you're home." Jocelyn nestled the baby in the cot as Jonathan sat down beside him. "The child is beautiful, Jonathan, just like you." "I don't know. How am I going to take care of him without Marianne?" "Don't worry, everything's going to work out. Hearing the horse carriage outside, Jocelyn hurried to get her cloak. It was probably her husband. "That's Roger. Jonathan, I have to go now. I'll be back tomorrow. I fed the baby and I left milk on the table. Take care." In the pouring rain, she rushed out to get into the carriage with Roger. Now, all alone in the silent house, Jonathan sat down beside the cot and stared at his son. He was sound asleep. Jonathan laid down and closed his eyes. No matter how much he tried to fall asleep, all that flashed before his eyes was Marianne. "What are you doing with the axe, Marianne? You're gonna hurt yourself." "I'm making a rocking chair. When our baby will be here, we'll sit by the fire and I'll sing him lullabies. And keep him up all night? Your voice is horrible." "Jonathan!" Jonathan opened his eyes and looked at the rocking chair, empty by the window, now empty forever. He tossed in bed, unable to sleep, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. At this time, hearing the knock, the baby woke up. Jonathan rushed to pick him up in his arms before he answered the door. But when he opened, he was startled seeing who stood at his porch. "Marianne? You're alive?" "Yes, Jonathan. I never died. I never left you." "No, this can't be. I buried you with my own hands." "No, Jonathan. I'm alive. I'm here. Is that our son?" As Marianne anxiously looked at the baby, Jonathan held him out. "Our son," he said as tears fell from his eyes. But it was just as Marianne was about to take the baby in her arms, Jonathan was startled by a cry. "No, Jonathan! Take our child away from her! That's not me!" Jonathan looked up behind Marianne, shocked to see the two of them. He grasped onto his son as the woman in front of him suddenly began laughing. Her face began to twist and deform into someone else. Many years ago, in this quiet town of Homewood, a beautiful young woman by the name Tamar had moved here and built a small cottage out in the woods by the graveyard. Her beauty fooled many, but in truth, she was no innocent woman, but a witch. After being banished from her hometown, Tamar had ran away to Homewood, where she found a new home amidst the graveyard, where she could continue her witchcraft and sorcery. Tamar would attend all the funerals that took place, but while everyone mourned the death of a loved one, she took delight in her wait for night, when she would return and have her share of the body. With her magic spells and witchcraft, Tamar rejuvenated herself and fulfilled her hunger and desires. But it was one day, someone spotted her. There was a woman in town who had recently lost her 12-year-old son and often visited the graveyard. But it was one evening she was shocked to see her own son standing there. William? When her boy saw her, he suddenly ran into the woods, and in her grief, she followed him, calling out, "William! William, stop! It's your mother! It's me!" She followed after him, until she saw him enter a small, broken-down cottage. Whose cottage is this? The woman immediately barged in, horrified to realize it was the cottage of a witch. There was a hideous scent in the air. Vile, wicked things hung up on the walls. And to the far corner, a young woman stood crouched over her pot. "Where is my son? What have you done with him?" "Your son? I saw my son. He came in here." "I know how you must feel as a mother to lose a child, but you have to accept your son is no more." Seeing a wicked grin behind her pretentious eyes, the woman fell in rage as she took out a dagger from her waist belt and immediately struck her. "You wicked witch. I know you defiled my son's body. You ruined his afterlife. Because of you, he is in misery, suffering eternal damnation. I won't spare you." That night, when the townspeople returned to the cottage, they found it empty. Tamar's body was nowhere to be found. The woman claimed to have taken her life, but no one knew what really happened to Tamar. And ever since then, whenever people walked these woods by her cottage, they returned to town in fear, shouting they had seen her. And soon after, when people were found lifeless in horrible conditions, defiled, eaten out in the woods in fright, the townspeople abandoned the graveyard and forbid everyone from going there again. But it was after a long time that Tamar found her next victim. When Jonathan began going out into the woods by the old graveyard to collect lumber. Jonathan stepped back in shock as he stared at the woman stretch out her hands to take his child. Marianne shouted out, "Banish her, Jonathan! Banish her right now!" Our Lord, the King of the world, the ever-living, the self-sustaining, the most holy, you are above all weakness. You are the most powerful. You are never absent. Give us refuge and protect us from all evil. No, no! Hearing the prayer, Tamar held her ears as she fell weak to her knees, trying to get away. But Jonathan stepped out and loudly told her, "In the name of the Lord of Light, I banish you." Within moments, Tamar disappeared. And Jonathan stared out into the rain to see Marianne looking at him and their son. "This is our son. He looks just like you." "Marianne, how am I going to live without you?" "Don't say that, Jonathan. You have to live for our son, for Jason. Don't leave me." "I have to, Jonathan. We all have a certain time, and my time is over. But we'll meet again one day. Take care of our son, and don't go to that graveyard again." Jason. "The ball went into the woods. I'll get it." What is this? Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.